So I'm still chipping away at my corkboard of requested flies. Today's comes to you from Keith Paris of the UK. Stick around. Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm Matt, thanks for stopping by. So it's going to be a pretty quick intro today because I could not find much information at all on this pattern that Keith requested. This one's called the Diawl Bach. Now I looked through at least 24 of my books. I found it in a couple of them by British authors, and they didn't talk about the history of it. The only thing they really said is it's a Welsh pattern. The words mean little devil. And looking it up online didn't give me a whole lot more. It seems the only searches for this were how do you pronounce Diawl Bach? And I did come across a couple of different pronunciations. Barry Orr Clark pronounced it Diawl Bach, and then a lot of people pronounced it Diawl Bach or Bach. So I'm not going to go with the Diawl. I'm going to go with Dial, and I'm going to go with Bach. B-A-C-H to me just looks like Bach. So that's what I'm going to call it. And I did find one more piece of information on this, but take this with a grain of salt. It was from an Icelandic website. I got Google to translate it for me, and they did mention that it might have been created by a guy named Wyndham Davies. Now that website wasn't sure, and I didn't see any other reference to this guy, so he may have created it, or he may not have. Now I did read a bit about how effective this pattern is. In the Stillwaters in the UK, it's really one of the most popular flies there today. And you can tie it with all kinds of variations. I think the defining characteristics of it are really just a brown tail, a brown throat, and a peacock herl body. You can tie it with a hot spot or without a hot spot. And you can vary the rib. You can do a flat tinsel or a wire tinsel, and you can really make it any color you want. But it's a pretty cool pattern, really easy to tie. It's supposed to be really effective over in Western Europe. I'm sure it'll do well here. And I think you're going to like it. Let's give it a shot. So there you go in the vise, the Diawl Bach. Now, that looks pretty big in there until you see my finger on it. It's a pretty small fly. This is a size 12. I'm going to tie it on a 1X long, 1 extra strong wet fly hook. Let's get that situated in there. And I'm starting with black thread. This is a 70 denier. I'll put a base down to the start of the bend. Now for the tail, just a generous portion, brown hackle fibers. I don't know how many this is. 12, 14 maybe. And I'd say a little bit longer than a hook gap. So let's get this caught in with a couple wraps and see what we got. Okay, I think that's going to be fine right there. Maybe one more wrap back. Okay. Now, when I pulled that off, I left a little bit of the curlies on the top. So I'm going to just kind of pull them up and then reach in here and cut it at a little bit of an angle. Now, you can kind of smooth this out. You won't have a big drop down right there. Okay, that's going to be fine. Next thing we're going to catch in is a rib, wire rib. And this is a copper and a size brassy. I did one a minute ago in a size medium, and it looked fine, but I think it was just maybe a little bit too big, so I'm going to go ahead and step it down to the brassy right here. Remember, brassy is the size between a medium and a small. So let's catch that in, and I left it as long as the hook. See, I'll catch that in just a second when I wrap it up, but before I do that, I want to go ahead and catch my peacock herl in. One strand of peacock herl. Now, I'm going to catch it in from the thin side. And it probably doesn't matter, but if you catch it in from the fat side, you could end up with your fly being thicker on the back than it is in the front. So I think it's just to be safe, let's go ahead and catch it in with the thinner part of the herl. Now we'll go ahead and bury this copper wire in all the way up. I'll take a wrap or two in front of it, but I'm going to bring it back to maybe, I don't know, 20% back, because we do have a little bit of a thorax that we're going to do after we wrap this herl. So let's just go ahead and wrap this. You could use your rotary function if you have a rotary, but I don't think it takes too long to just go ahead and wrap this up, one wrap right in front of the other, and then stop when you get up to your thread. All right, now that's kind of a strange looking peacock herl. It was a little bit odd, and it's kind of thick up here, so I'm going to snip it instead of break it, just because it might not break that easily. But yeah, that's a little bit of an odd body. It's still a little bit thicker in the back than it is in the front, but we can live with that. Now let's just go ahead and counter wrap this rib. Probably 4 wraps, maybe 5, but this doesn't give you a whole lot of flash to the fly. It might give a little bit and a little bit of weight, but it's really just to, lock this peacock herl in. So wrap it all the way up the front. And what I'll do here, I'll put a couple of wraps on it, and now pull my thread tight and then just pull it a little bit forward and put a couple of wraps securing it going forward. So now I can probably spin this off without it risking it unwrapping on me. So there we go. And if you have a little sharp point, just put a couple of wraps, a couple loose wraps over it. But I think we're fine right there. So when I take my thread right back to where I stopped that body, now I'm going to catch in the next component, which I'm doing what Peter Gathercole did. And I'm going to catch in 2 small pieces of red holographic tinsel. 1 on each side. So let's just try to lay this on right here on the side. We'll do a couple of medium wraps. We might need to adjust it. Okay, I think that is going to be all right there. And I'm going to just snip it off maybe an inch or so. Just leaves me enough to work with. And we'll do the same thing on this side right here. So another couple of medium loose wraps right there and adjust it. Okay, I think my tinsel, holographic tinsel, is coming off on the side like I want, so I'm going to put just a couple of, well, that one moved on me, but a couple of tight wraps now to lock it. Now we can snip off the front piece. Okay, those are coming off the side pretty well. Now take one more strand of peacock herl, or the excess of the one you just used if you have enough left, and just catch this in. We're going to build a thorax. So a couple wraps to catch this in. Now take your thread up and then wrap this thorax. And a little bit thicker than the body if you can make that happen. If not, don't worry about it. Just put several of them on here. Okay, let's couple wraps to catch this off right here. Now make sure my tinsel is still about where I want it. I think it is. It's kind of dangling all over the place, so I'm going to go ahead and snip it just to keep it out of the way. Now one more component before we work on the head. Just a few more fibers from that same brown feather. We're going to tie it on as a beard. Right underneath and maybe to the point of the hook. Let's see if I can get this in here. Try a pinch wrap right there. We'll do a couple wraps and then check it. Okay, I think that is going to be just fine. So one more wrap to lock it. Now get your finest point scissors, because this is a little hard to get in here and trim this. But these Dr. Slick razor tip scissors usually do a pretty decent job of getting way up in there. And I think we got it in there pretty good. We got a couple of fibers, but we can clean that up with our head. So now just build this up a little bit, and then we're going to wrap these cheeks, this holographic tinsel. So let's pull this forward, and I'm going to do them both at the same time. Try to anyway. So pull them forward. Now I'll just do a couple of loose medium wraps to check it before I really lock it down. Okay, how's that look? All right, we got a decent looking cheek right there and right there too, so I think that's fine. A couple extra wraps to lock it. Now let's snip these off and then we'll work on our head. All right, just gonna take my thread right back to the eye and then ramp it back up. Build a decent sized head. It's a nymph. You don't want a tiny head on this guy. So I think that's gonna be fine. Now what you could have done, and what Barry Orr Clark did, he cut the black thread off and then put some orange thread on, so he made it a hot head. You could certainly do that, or you could have started with orange thread and just tied the whole thing with it. But I'm not. I want to do what, you know, I saw in Peter Gathercole's book, which was black thread, and then use those red cheeks for your hot spot. So let's get in here and cut this thread off. And there you go. Drop of head cement, and we're done. Pretty cool looking pattern, not hard at all to tie. So that's it, everybody. I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.